Chaos swirls and spins. Unruly forces collide. Order seeks its peace. Here is how I use 3D printing to clean my room.
I left my heart in the basement of my house today.
If you were one of the 5 people who happened to see my last video on my New Year's resolution for 2024, you would know that the theme of this year is building stuff for myself. I spent 2023 doing a lot of cool work for other people, but I intend to use 2024 as a time for me to focus on projects that I want to pursue. With that said, I'm starting off the year with a project that I've been putting off for a very, very, very long time, and that is cleaning my room. My 9-to-5 job was pretty intensive last year, and as a result, my room has gradually started descending into madness. While I'm generally a pretty clean person, it's hard to keep your environment put together when your life itself is not put together. I've attempted to clean things up in the short term on occasion by lining things up all nice and tidy, but over time it always seems that the laws of thermodynamics take over and entropy does its work. As a result, I've had a lot of problems lately with losing things, which has led to immense frustration and minor brain hemorrhaging. Sometime late last year, I stumbled upon Scott U. Jan's YouTube channel. For those of you unfamiliar with his work, he's a maker that's done a lot of content about the Ender 3 Pro, which happens to be a 3D printer very similar to the 3D printer I have. There was one particular video he made that caught my eye called Organizing My Drawer with 3D Printing, where he essentially designed cutouts in his drawer for housing various tools and equipment he uses on a regular basis. As a fellow Asian, also with black earrings, I was quite inspired to try something like this, but with my whole room instead of just a drawer. It just made a lot of sense to me. I kept misplacing things because I didn't really have a dedicated spot to put them. Why not give the objects in my room more meaningful and obvious homes? So, I got to work. Before designing my own mounts and brackets, I decided to see what was generally available online first. After all, I'm pretty lazy and figured there have to have been existing mounts for at least some of the stray objects in my room. I ended up looking through a bunch of models on Thingiverse, which is essentially a repository of free 3D models. The first thing I printed was a Nintendo Switch controller mount, which worked pretty well without me having to alter the design at all. Prior to this, the controller loved to move around my room a lot, but now it has a neat station right on my desk. After that, I found this nice cable organizer, which worked perfectly for the stray cables on my work desk. Combined with the power of double-sided tape, I was now able to keep those chaotic electric eels at bay. I also have a lot of computer mice for absolutely no good reason at all, so I printed some stands for them. For these stands, I actually did add a functional contribution to the original design. While the mice fit perfectly, I didn't have a place to put the little USB dongle things, so I added a rectangular cutout in the back to give those a hidden home as well.
Holy shit, I'm a genius.
In the Thingiverse and 3D printing world, these kind of modifications are called a remix. My bustling ego was super inflated after I added this groundbreaking change to the mouse mount design, so I immediately started feeling motivated to start designing my own mounts from scratch. Despite how I look, I'm a pretty clean person, so I have the tendency to wipe down things like my phone, wallet, and glasses with alcohol disinfection swabs when I come home after touching grass. I usually put these swabs in my drawer, which is an absolute nightmare to navigate through. Thus, I decided to make a nice wall mount for these swabs in Fusion 360. The end result was a sophisticated, Apple-like design that could have been designed by Johnny Ives himself. My next target was my projector remote. I recently bought a projector so I could watch videos and play games from my bed without the burden of setting up a heavy and expensive TV. After making this purchase, I found myself losing the remote in the sheets very often. It is actually quite spooky when this happens, and the resolution is often me having to turn the lights on and conducting a military-grade search over my entire bed. The simple solution to this was designing a remote mount that could be mounted to my work desk leg, which happens to be right next to my bed. Instead of designing a box and mounting it with double-sided tape like a caveman, I decided to be more sophisticated and used a bolt and hex nut combination instead. This ended up looking pretty strange, but functional, just like me. So I was pretty happy with it and called that design a win. Now that I got my design feet wet, sounds kind of gross, I decided it was time to tackle the real beast, my drawer. I currently have a lot of tools and random crap in my drawer, and it's been getting increasingly worse over time. There was no way I was going to have the time and patience to create mounts for all the objects in there, but I figured I could at least start with the ones that I use the most. I pulled out my calipers and started measuring the weapons I used the most and wrote down their measurements. Instead of taking really specific measurements and designing fits like a glove like cutouts for each of the items in my arsenal like Scott did, I decided that it might make more sense to simplify things as rectangles. This was for 2 reasons. 1, it would allow me to reuse compartments in case a tool broke and I wanted to substitute it for a different one. 2, I am very lazy. Given the peanut brain approach I was taking with this, I was a bit worried that it would look really bad. But to my surprise, most of the modules ended up looking fine and I was quite happy with the result. After laying these out, I secured them to the bottom of my drawer using a touch of double-sided tape, and things ended up looking pretty good. Now, unlike Scott's drawer, which is pretty shallow, my drawer is as deep as the ending to Attack on Titan, so I'm fully aware I could probably fit more things in here. I actually plan on making vertically stackable drawer modules for my less commonly used items in the future, but for now this does the job and I'm fine with the depth because I have monkey arms. While I was a little skeptical of how effective these efforts would be at first, I was pretty surprised by the results. Even with these couple of prints, I have saved a lot of time just by giving these small items a home. At this point, I'm able to find everything without much thought, and in general I've become a much less irritable person. Who knew that not wasting 30 minutes trying to find something can improve your mood so much? I also found the design process for these functional mounts to be pretty fun. Pretty liberating knowing that you can design parts that are specific to your design philosophies without anyone telling you what to do. For the projector remote holder, for example, it's not the most attractive design in the world, but I like it because it works for my use case, and that's all that matters. In addition, these solutions are pretty economical. On Amazon, some plastic mounts can cost over $5 to $10 and might not even be guaranteed to fit the items at hand. But by designing them yourself, you get a perfect fit, oftentimes for a few cents to maybe $1 or at most $2, depending on how much plastic you're using. Overall, this was super fun, and I definitely see myself printing more of these modules in the near future. I may even turn this into a series of some sort if I make more things. We'll see. Thanks for watching, and if you want to see more projects like this, subscribe and join me for the ride. If you want to print any of the models shown off in this video yourself, you can find them in the Thingiverse links in the description below. Thanks for watching.